everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. I'm Gary Mack.
And Rich Baxter joining you over here.
And Rich, how are you this cold, wintry weekend as we are looking forward to apparently a massive snowstorm coming our way?
Yes, indeed. One of the big major winter storms, I believe they named it Orleans, is moving, or something close to that anyway, is moving across the Midwest, coming up from the coast, and nor'easter developing as we typically see a huge snowfall from that. So our eyes are on spring training with baseball still, but we're going to get a little taste of winter.
Well, my hands are in prayer, praying that we do not get as much snow. I hate snow. I hate the winter. So hopefully it'll blow north and leave us alone because we don't need it. I don't want it. Go away, snow. It's a nuisance that we don't need. But Rich, we've had a lot of news this past week, surprisingly so. We've had a bunch of free agent signings, a big blockbuster trade, and the Hall of Fame voting has come out. And Rich,
Yeah, it seems like nobody going to be elected to the Hall of Fame this year for 2021.
And I think that is totally ridiculous. Kurt Schilling was at 71%. And I mean, come on. It just, I don't know. You almost wonder if it was fixed because Jeter didn't got in last year, didn't have an induction because of the pandemic. So now he wanted to have his own, induction with Larry Walker. I don't know. It just I think it's a little ridiculous. And the thing that ticks me off the most, I don't know about you, Rich, but that 14 writers sent in empty ballots.
Yeah, that's amazing. It just goes to show how behind the times having baseball writers electing Hall of Fame players is. Now, many years ago, when they established the Hall of Fame and, had the baseball writers, they were the core of people that were involved in putting these players into the Hall of Fame. They still are, certain classifications. But I really think it's time for the Hall of Fame to look at things the way technologies have developed, different avenues of media have developed over the years. These baseball writers, for and large, are a group that have been essentially disenfranchised from establishment publishing as it used to be, quote unquote. And they don't necessarily represent the real baseball fan or um, even media personality, I believe, in this day and age. I really think it's an era that is bygone. The Baseball Hall of Fame should take a good look at this and see just that they're missing a lot of what should be the correct way of voting people into the Hall of Fame. And they're just missing the boat on this, so to speak. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of these baseball writers, they act as if they are the game. They are in the spotlight anymore
Right,
to me.
right.
And it's a shame. And they're also penalizing players, which I kind of agree with, Bonds and Clemens, with the PED scandals that they were involved in. But judge a player for what he did on the field. Case in point, Schilling. I don't see why he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Now, writers across this country, even USA Today, had a big piece on Schilling, a number of different pieces that they build upon, and opinion writing and things like that, and saying that, you know, maybe it's right that he's not in the Hall of Fame for his beliefs and things. But you know what? Everybody has an opinion these days. It's just amplified times 1,000. A lot of these people that are putting these tweets out and these opinions out don't realize the big voice that is echoing through the canyons. Now, what is it worth to them? It's not going to be to their benefit for the most part, unfortunately. So, um, to their own detriment, they're sort of tinging their own, um, so to speak, careers of baseball by having everybody know what they think at every particular minute. And it's a shame for them. It's a shame for the baseball world to not be able to celebrate a player for what he did on the field.
Exactly right. And look, it's people, it's the fans that go to the Hall of Fame. If they think a Bonds or a Clemens should be in, and look, it's taken me a long time to get to this point because I was, they use steroids, they shouldn't get in. But you know what? People want to see, if people want to see them in the Hall of Fame, and they have the numbers. It's not whether they're, we don't know what's tainted, what's not. These guys had a lot of ability. Would they have gotten to? Everybody seems to agree that had they not done the steroids, they probably would have got to the Hall of Fame anyway. Uh, I don't know. It just seems that in this day and age, when especially now when you have the hit king not in the Hall of Fame, Pete Rose, when the home run king, you want to put an asterisk, if you will, by it. Um, Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame. If you have a guy that won the Cy Young, won over 300 games, won the Cy Young, what, 5, 6 times or more, there's something wrong with that. And I understand that they took the steroids and everything, but you know what? We don't know who else did and got away with it in that era. So, Bonds could have been facing pitchers that were on steroids. Clemens could have been, well, we know he was facing some batters on steroids. So it's I don't know. There's got to be a way that they can let the fans in on this. Like you said, with the technology nowadays, they could have some sort of weighted system, or they count. 25% of the fan vote counts, and then the rest of the writers. Um, I don't know how you would do it. I really don't. But the technology is there. We do it for the All Star game. Why not do it for the Hall of Fame? Even if you don't, um, I don't know. Let's say that at least do a poll,
Something, anything.
something to see who people want to see in the Hall of Fame out of and put the list out and let people vote on it, and then see what you get. I mean, if you get, if you're gonna get wise guys and you're gonna get, uh, votes for,
Big Bird or
yeah, I mean, but now it was a poor crop. The class was very thin this year, granted, um, but still, for 14 people to put in an empty ballot, there had to be, I'm sorry, there had to be at least, one person on the ballot that you thought was required. Kurt Schilling, we think, Clemens, Bonds, there had to be somebody else.
and you
Uh,
should actually lose your right to vote if you turn in a blank ballot. That's
yeah,
the epitome of being I'm Mr. Snob or Mrs. Snob, and I'm going to turn in a blank ballot. I'm going to try to make myself known because I'm going to in turn tell all my Twitter followers or wherever they're posting all this stuff
Right.
what I did. So that's so ridiculous. They're trying to upstage a player who put his whole career and um, earned the right to be in the Hall of Fame, and trying to one up that because they have a pen and no more, even a pen, a computer notepad, which they jump from service to service. Somehow they get these voting rights. But writing and baseball writing is not what it used to be. It's not wait until the morning to see what the headlines is. Headlines are 10 minutes after a game anymore. There's no more such thing as a baseball writer, in my opinion, as much as you would like to think. These guys like, the big names out there, uh, I forget his name,
Rosenthal,
Rosenthal. There's a
yeah,
clique of them.
Heyman,
There's about 10 of
Sherman.
them. They're all a big clique, and it's like a power um, group that tries to, I don't know, assimilate their views on the way how baseball should be written about. Maybe they're the ringleaders of it all. I don't know, but it's just a time that should have been 50 years ago. We hear about the sports with the black players coming up into the league being accepted. That's what I view this as, like way back in the dark ages where baseball Hall of Fame is depending on this certain group of baseball writers, as they're called these days, and they're not. And they have all the power in the world to put these players into the Hall of Fame. And it's a thing that needs to be overhauled.
Here's the thing that cracks me up too. They talk about character, and that's why they voted down on Schilling. Some of them, they didn't like his character because of his political beliefs or whatever. Same thing with Pete Rose. Um, but aren't they? You know, I lost my train of thought now. We carry.
Well, the whole of baseball, while you recover that train of thought, ganged up on Pete Rose, the organization of MLB put a taboo on him, of put him in a box and close the lid on him, so to speak.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just I don't think you show much character by putting in an empty ballot. I just don't think it works that way. And
And it's
like you
stupid.
say, I think you should. But you know what their point's going to be, Rich, is that there was nobody on that ticket that was worthy of coming into the Hall of Fame. And if you're not voting for the PED guys, then you're not going to vote for Bonds or Clemens if that's your stand. Right? If you don't like Schilling because of his politics, you're not going to vote for Schilling. So then you've got whatever's left on there, and granted, it was a thin field, but you can make an argument for Jeff Kent as a Hall of Famer. And then why couldn't you vote for one guy? I mean, if you knew that, hey, Jeff Kent has got great numbers. He's one of those borderline guys. But he's not going to get in. So why not vote for him at least to fill out a ballot?
Yeah, just anything beats a blank, in my opinion. My dad used to
Yeah.
always say that anything beats a blank. So, um, that's our call on that. But Hall of Fame, as you said, we'll have some inductees this year from the previous year, 2020, of course, unless, of course, all this COVID still is going on, which it still is.
I
And
don't mean to laugh, but it
they'll
just
have to do
seems
it virtually, I guess, which is what they
I
should have did last year.
they should have done it last year. They could have had them there. They could have had them spaced. They didn't have to have all the Hall of Famers come.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be funny here, but with the amount they lost, I'm sure there's enough room now to space everybody I mean, there's a way to do it if they're letting people in now to it's in hockey games or basketball games I saw. So if they can find a way to do that, I'm sure they can set up seats that are spaced out in the cow pasture, or do it in another part of the Hall of Fame. Do it inside the hall or something. I don't know. But um I don't think if they cancel it again this year, I think they're going to have some sort of ceremony. I don't, whether it's, they hand them the plaque with masks on or whatever. I can't see them canceling it yet another year. Can you?
No, that would
No.
be very
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
And but that just proves that they weren't ready to adapt. Last year, the whole world was adapting. We're recording on Zoom right now. They could have did something on Zoom. It would have been done, over with, move on. Next year, would have made history.
It was Jeter, though.
Yeah.
They wanted to make a big deal out of it. I mean, they
Yeah.
knew they would, they sell out every year, but this was even more sold out. Uh, it was half of New York City was going up there for that. I know people that were going up there and were very disappointed that they couldn't get to go. So that's the whole thing. That's why they want the hoopla, because it's Jeter.
And just another side note about some of the players that we were mentioning in the steroid era, and even for some reason Schilling is linked to that steroid area as well. His name comes up with the name of Bonds and Clemens. It shouldn't, but he came from their era, and he's now like included in that group. But unfortunately, baseball was like a jockey with these guys. They jumped on their backs back in the 90s when this was all happening, and they rode them for all they're worth. Now, they had to know what was going on
I
because
agree.
everybody in this country knew there was a steroid scandal going on across the country. It was in every gymnasium, every workout area. I was not a steroid user, nor would I ever be, but a friend of mine was, and I got wind of it in the 90s. News filtered to me. Oh, did you know your buddy? Oh, yeah, he's on steroids now. He's building himself up. He didn't need to, but MLB knew what was going on. They jumped on the back of these players. They hyped the Sammy Sosa, uh, Mark
Mark
McGuire
McGuire.
matchup during the 90s. They rode them for all they were worth. And then now, years later, it's easy for them to kick them to the curb, so to speak, because they milked them like a cow, to be honest with you, during the 90s.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. And it took me a while to get there as well. I mean, I was, adamant that they shouldn't be in, and now I'm looking at it a little bit differently, and saying like you, the owners rode them and rode their coattails, and let's face it, after that strike, it did the McGuire Sosa thing really did help save the game and bring
It
it back into
it brought
prominence.
fans in droves, in millions. It equivalent The equivalent in ticket value must have been billions of dollars across baseball following this, epic 2 or 3 year run battle between those two players. And you knew something was happening. You'd have stupid newspaper articles about what's changed, the ball, the bat. They knew what was going on. A lot of people knew what was going on. That's my contention.
Well,
Social media wasn't what it was back then. In fact,
yeah,
it didn't exist.
right, right, and I think the whole point that people knew, the writers had to know. I mean,
They're
it
right
just
there.
they're there all the time. They had to know something was up. And I believe that the whole, the ball is juice, this thing was all this and that was all what I would call a smokescreen. It
And
was just a, sleight of hand. Look what the right hand's doing so the left hand can steal your money.
and even companies, you had Wheaties boxes. I bought a half dozen boxes, maybe more, of Mark McGuire when he hit the 73 home runs. I bought right into it. Oh, look at it. He's on a Wheaties box. You know, companies rode the coattails of this. And that's what they do. They jump on the spirit of the moment, whatever it happens to be. We saw the backlash and the riots of last year. The companies really didn't go say a word. Big companies like Nike, other companies that were just broken into and burned to the ground.
Right,
They
right.
didn't say a word. You didn't hear nothing out of them. But all of a sudden, 12 months into the future, something happens, and oh, we're going to look at our budgets for donations for the politicians now. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
give me a break. I'm so sick of that corporate mentality that it's a sickness. It's like an illness.
And it's only one party that they're looking at.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's a
Well,
sickness, regardless of anybody's views on it. You got to look at it for what it is. But
and next year's going to be interesting because you're going to have A Rod and Big Poppy on the ballot, and both of them have been connected to steroid use. So it'll be interesting to see if they get in or either one of them gets in on the first ballot. Not a Big Poppy fan, but you know
no,
he was well beloved, and we'll see. There'll be an uproar in Boston if he doesn't get in. But
I'd say they should be treated like Bonds and Clemens. We'll see. You know, and to me, it really doesn't matter. Like Schilling said, take his name off the list for next year. I like the historical nature of the Baseball Hall of Fame, but I'm seeing its shortcomings in the last few years, especially. Um, do I want to stay away from the Hall of Fame because of it? No, I'd still go, but it diminishes the whole process, the whole initiation, and what people are backing and what people are saying. To me, I don't want to go on the politics end of it, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me sometimes.
yeah, and I agree, but I think when you get there and you enter, I think you lose that feelings, because then you're overwhelmed with the sense of history and the stuff that's there, and
Yeah, the
and
collections that they have.
yeah, yeah. So you really lose the you forget the political side of it, but uh, I don't know. But Rich, we had a lot of signings this week. Your Phillies were busy.
Yeah, Fighting Phil signed up JT Realmuto. He was on the radar of many teams, including Gary's favorite, the Mets. But
Right?
I'm ambivalent about JT. I'd rather have him on the Phillies, but he's been on the Phillies. What did they do with him on the Phillies?
Yeah.
Great. You got JT, you got um, his buddy out in right field,
Bryce.
Harper, and who was calling for him to be re signed. Get something done on the field now, guys. Like you've been lagging behind terribly for years with the Phillies. So good for them. But we also had some news this morning.
Well, we had news that, but just to get back to the Phillies for a second, you also signed Didi Gregorius to a 2-year contract, and left-hander Matt Moore to a 1-year deal. So at least the Phillies are trying to be competitive in the National League East. But what you were alluding to is a huge blockbuster trade that the St. Louis Cardinals made, Rich.
Yeah, it was just announced. Turned on MLB Network Radio before we did the show here, and looks like Nolan Arenado, a guy that I haven't really followed his career all that much. I've seen him occasionally when the Phillies played the Rockies out there, and he's been a big star for years. But looks like he's moved on to St. Louis.
Yeah, Rockies and the Cardinals have traded, made a big trade. Colorado is expected to retain approximately 50 million of the 199 million remaining on Arenado's contract. He signed a big contract a couple of years ago, and now they wanted to get that money off their payroll. But they let's see, who did the Cardinals gave up? Lefty Austin Gomber, righties Jake Woodford and Angel Rondon, first baseman Lucan Baker, outfielder John Torres, all headed to Colorado for Arenado. So that's one, two, three, four, five for one deal,
Yeah,
Rich.
yeah.
And I know at one time the Mets were talking to Colorado about Arenado, but that's a lot, 5-1. I don't know what, if these guys are in the minors, majors, or what, but that's a lot of players.
It's a lot of players and a lot of money off of the contract in there. Nolan Arenado. I was just listening. They said something about his salary being 30 million a year, but with the knockdown that Colorado will be paying, it's only like paying him $23 million a
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
and that's what Rio Muto signed for. He becomes the most player that in the catcher's role that has the biggest contract for a 1-year season at 23 million. He doesn't have the largest contract of any catcher over the series of years, but 23 million, that seems to be a magic number
Hmm.
this year with a couple players. So
Yeah.
yeah, it must be nice.
Now he has Arenado. He's got a no trade clause that he's got to waive. They think that won't be a problem. And his contract includes an opt out clause following the 2021 season that could be reworked in some manner, including being pushed back. So I wonder if they'll give him a couple of mil more to get rid of the option opt out clause or to push it back, because it would, you hate to lose five players and then the guy stays till the end of the season and leaves.
Yeah, that's for sure. Um, we'll have to see what happens, but of course, St. Louis has become a National League Central favorite to win the NL Central here, being in that league that includes the Cubs, the Reds, and the Brewers. So they've made a huge move here, very close to the start of spring training. We'll have to see what happens with this as the season starts to develop here. And Gary, just another news in baseball in the last week. This happens closer to home for you. There was a big scandal in Wall Street. I guess most of our listeners may not have heard of it, but those that are interested in stocks and things certainly know of the Wall Street bets slash GameStop um, stock battle going on between giant billionaire hedge fund owners and John Q. Public out there behind the computer buying up shares of a company like GameStop, which is like the McDonald's of the video game industry. I believe they have over 5,000 outlets across from New York to California, and that this was about a $6-7 stock, Gary, maybe 8 months ago, 7-8 months ago. But if you had it in the last couple days and somehow accumulated it, it shot up into the high 300s, 400, $500 range because of a group called Wall Street Bets who gathered their resources together, and they were sick of what they call the short companies who push certain companies down with pricing, um, and they were tired of this. They're probably gamers, of course, um, sick of the trying to put GameStop out of business almost is the way that they viewed it as. And, all of a sudden they were buying up, spending all their money, buying up this single stock, and then it moved on to other stocks, much to the detriment of the new owner of the New York Mets, who is has a company that has a hedge fund He was actively against, so to speak, GameStop. He authored a $2.75 billion loan to another company that was in battling these group of, call them pirates, if you will, investors. Um, Interesting story.
I'll tell you, it's very interesting. It's one thing I don't understand is stocks and bonds and Wall Street. Can't understand it at all. Love the movie Trading Places, but some of it still confuses the hell out of me. Uh, I don't. What I don't get is these hedge funds drive the price down. Do they then buy the stock and
Well,
sell it when it goes up, or they just
they
drive it down and get it out of business?
they can make money by driving a stock the other way because you have other investors putting money into it, saying that, they're hoping for the success of a company. Say I have $10,000, for example, and want to put it into GameStop. I want to invest in it. I feel that it's going to have a good value over the time, and it's a good stock to be in. My 10,000 goes in, and I invest at $10 a share, say, hoping that it goes up. Well, the hedge funds are putting $1 billion on it going down the opposite way. In other words, like a crap table, you're either going to play with the shooter, he's going to get his number before he rolls a seven, or you're going to bet against the shooter with that he's going to roll the seven and crap out, and the stock would go down in a sense. So you can bet both ways on a stock, not
But
bet, but
how do you make money if you're betting it down?
because you can buy shares at a certain price, guaranteed to purchase at a certain price. And when that share goes down, you're making money in effect. In other words, you have an option to buy a share at a certain price. And then when you exercise that option, and if you're like some of the hedge funds that are betting a lot of these firms to go down, and some bet for them to go up. And I don't use the term bet. I shouldn't use the term bet. It's invest. Um, but yeah, you can make a ton of money on a stock movement one way or the other. The only time a lot of investors don't make money is when a stock stays the same because there's no
So,
movement, there's no volatility. So you've got a straight line going across. So nobody's making money, either the investor that's hoping it goes up, or maybe a hedge fund manager that wants something to go down. So you can make money either way.
this is I so you buy you got I gotta understand this. Maybe we should do this off of the air. But let me just see if we can get a quick thing here. You buy a stock, like you said, you got $10,000. You buy GameStop at $10 a share.
Hmm.
So now does a hedge fund come in with their $1 million and say, all right, I'll buy it at $5 a share,
Yeah, essentially that
and
it's a
that drives the price down, and then they buy it at $5 a share. But where
it
do they make the money?
it's a it's called a put option. So as it loses money, the stock, the accumulation on the other end goes up. They start to make money as the stock goes down, so to speak. So, in a sense, they're manipulating the price to go down, even though there's a lot of money coming into it because hedge funds have a lot of money. They have, this
Right.
story linking the new Mets owner to giving a $2.75 billion loan to another hedge fund um, that is actively trying to keep GameStop stock low, and that's just a loan, 2.75 billion that they gave them to try to battle what was a losing battle for them. They
Wh-
lost probably all that money.
Why would they want to keep it low?
Well, not necessarily they want to keep it low, but you've got a lot of investors that are putting their money in for it to go up. So they can make money off of those investors by making it go down, so to speak. But they didn't anticipate that it would turn into an inferno of investors being called in from all avenues to throw their money into the stock. As we saw, it rose up, because as it rises up, you've got hedge fund people that all of a sudden, by a certain date, they have to buy more stock to offset their losses, or they will lose money. So at a certain point, if they have to keep buying stock to offset their losses, they've lost money anyway.
And the
So
stock keeps going up.
right. So it's called a short squeeze. You've got investors putting their money into it by the bucket loads. Meanwhile, you have the people that were betting on it to go down have to keep investing on it to cover their losses, so to speak, and try to average that out. So you got a ton of money fueling into the fund that causes it to shoot up like a rocket in certain instances. And that's what we saw when we saw it go up to $350 a share. You had both sides feeding into the frenzy, pumping money into the stock. And it didn't stop with GameStop. There was other companies that were involved and still are involved. Even on the other end of this, doesn't involve baseball, but some
Well,
brokerages
we don't care
were,
anymore.
we've already established that with the show. Some brokerages were locking out buyers from buying these certain funds in direct, in my opinion, violation of what they're there for. They're there for the investor. They're supposed to let you invest in whatever you want
Yes, that
to
I
invest.
agree. Yeah.
But yeah,
But all the other stuff is legal.
yeah. So the new owner of the Mets taking an ugly battle public with Twitter. Finally, I believe he was shut down wisely because he was going back and forth banter with the
Yeah.
Wall Street Bets crowd. But how often does this happen? We love it.
I tell you. Well, thank you for joining us this week on Wall Street Now.
Bets on baseballtalkradio.com.
Nicely done. You turned it back into baseball by bringing in Steve Cohen.
So buy
and,
our
you,
stock.
and buy our stock. And talking to stock, we don't have stock. Well, we've got a lot of stock into this show, but we're not selling stock in the show. But you could be a part of the show and help us get by and improve the show. If you noticed, my audio may not be as good as it is in other weeks because I've had mic problems today.
And nobody contributed to the fund.
And nobody contributed to the fund. So let's short squeeze this show and get some hedge fund to throw billions of dollars into it. But if you want to throw $1 or $2, please do, and consider doing it by going to patreon.com, baseball talk, or you can go to our homepage for the host of the show, anchor.fm / baseball talk radio show. And you can support us from either spot. Either spot will you can leave a donation from, and we would greatly appreciate it, and it would help us grow and bring more entertaining Wall Street news like this and politics, two things we probably should never get involved with.
But we do.
But we do anyway. So I hope you'll check that out. Patreon.com / baseball talk. And we have anchor.fm at baseball talk radio / baseball talk radio show. And you know what? Check out the Facebook page too. It's facebook.com / baseball talk radio show. Go check that out. And if you'd like to be a part of the show, give us a call at 516-619-6341. That's our voicemail hotline. You can leave a question, a comment, or anything at all there. And we'll be glad to play it on the air as long as it's clean and it makes sense. And it's not about stocks and bonds. Rich will have that. Rich will have that.
Or if you have a tip for us, we'll gladly take that
Or
as well.
now that would be insider trading. I know that much.
Well, our listeners come from a large range of the public across the country and around the world. 87% of our listeners come from the U.S., with 6% over in England. Hello, England. Um, we're up to
Cheers.
1% in Mexico. So
Hola.
thank you. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Uh,
And Apple Podcasts, those are a behemoth of listeners out there. 72% join us from there. Amazon Alexa, we're creeping up in the listings. So let me remind you, if you have a smart speaker device, as they call them now, the Google, um, the Alexa, and any other that I've missed out there, you can ask the device to play the latest Baseball Talk Radio Show podcast, and chances are you're going to listen to our show. So Overcast with 3%, Anchor Direct at 3%, and then we have 18% from other areas. So a growing list of 18% out there from other listening platforms. We have our highest percentage of listeners in the 45 through 59 age group. So advertisers out there, they're the ones that have all the money in the country. So throw your money behind us a little bit and give us an ad, if you will. And anyone else out there that wants to talk with us, you can email us, rich at baseballtalkradio.com or Gary at baseballtalkradio.com. If you have a comment you want to share with us, you didn't quite understand how to sponsor our podcast as a listener, you can always drop us an email and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So, Gary, a ton more of baseball news on the way. Currently, the Caribbean series is underway down in Mexico, down there. So that's interesting. And I'm thinking we're going to be talking some spring training baseball real soon.
well, I hope so, Rich. We still got one big fish free agent out there, Trevor Bauer, rumored to be going to the Mets. We don't know. The Mets made, well, the rumor is the Mets made an offer, but it was only in the 3 to 4 year range, and the experts think he's looking for something longer than that. So we'll see how. We're still waiting to see how that all plays out. But uh, lots of lots of trades, some signings going on this week. At least there's something shaking this year, not like last year when they knew. I guess they were really in question, though they did start spring training and go through spring training, but this pandemic thing is still a big question mark. I'll give you an example now. I know somebody was scheduled to go to an event in a certain, like a seminar type thing, and they canceled it because of the pandemic, but because of the place that they were holding the event at is now a COVID vaccine center. So, we're going to have to keep that in mind. There are certain, I don't know about Philly did it, but City Field is a COVID vaccine center.
Yeah.
So, how long are they going to keep that going? And how will that affect the baseball? Will they move it to the Javits Center here in New York, or to I don't know. You can't move it to the Garden, Madison Square Garden, because that's they've got hockey going on and basketball there. Can't move it to Brooklyn because they got basketball going there. I don't know what they're going to do then. So, this is all going to have parts to do with what kind of season we're going to have. Are they going to let people in? Yet to be decided, but are the players going to get vaccinated? Will it be their time to get vaccinated? And if not, they have different. It's going to be screwy, because if they're going to be in Florida, Arizona, are they under Florida or Arizona vaccination rules, or is some going to get vaccinated at home if their home state uh, reaches the criteria? We're running out of time too. I mean, we're 2 weeks away, so it's a wacky situation, and this pandemic continues to haunt everything.
Yes, it does. It's certainly a terrible thing across the country. 400,000 plus deaths from it around the world, 2.1 million attributed deaths to COVID-19. So it's still very real out there. And we want to encourage our listeners, uh, please take the necessary precautions, washing the hands, social distancing, masks, common sense as well. So hopefully everyone will be able to do that. And Gary, I'm looking forward to the storm a little bit, only because it gets us that much closer to spring training baseball.
Yes, it does, Rich. Mask up. Uh, yeah, I'm. No. If you know me, I hate the snow. I hate the winter. I hate the cold weather. So man, if I could pack my bags and go to Florida, I'd be down there. Uh, I don't even care if I'm near spring training. I just want to get out of this weather. There's
Yeah.
nothing more I hate more than snow. But what are you gonna do? I'm stuck here, so got food in the house, got
Make the
booze in the
best of it.
house. That's right, got booze in the house, got food in the house.
Plenty of
So
coffee.
I'm not a coffee drinker,
No.
so no, never touch the stuff.
Oh,
Never touch the stuff.
love it.
Yeah, no, never liked the taste of it. Believe it or not, had it once and spit it out. Couldn't stand the taste of it. I will have a tea occasionally, and uh, hot chocolate, but no coffee for me.
All right, Gary, skipping on the coffee. Well,
More for you.
thanks for all our listeners out there, and stay safe. Consider on sponsoring our show. I know right now we don't have a ton of listeners out there, but as spring training picks up, we'll have more and more. But we'd like to establish something nice. And as I said, Gary's looking for, an i7 to put some more things together for us on our YouTube channel. And who knows?
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. But uh, you know, uh, keep subscribing on YouTube or on Anchor or wherever you watch or listen to the program. Subscribe. That really helps us out, and then you'll know whenever the next edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show comes out. So until the next time, Rich, have a great week. I'll see you next time.